the thing that's been great with this group and why it gives me great encouragement moving forward is you wouldn't know what our record is watching practice. They show up and they work, and then they're intentional about their work. There's no one hanging their head or feeling sorry for themselves. They go out there and work. And so that has made it much more enjoyable and easier to navigate through this time because of the way they show up.
Welcome back, or welcome to Y Option. Week 12 in the books. Can't wait to dive into that. Of course, always joined by the co-founder of Y Option, Jim Thornby. Jim, excited to see you. We have an interesting day today. We got a big week this week. Got rivalry games like USC, UCLA. Budding rivalry game, Washington State, Oregon State. Today, we're going to have Trent Bray on the podcast, the head coach of Oregon State. I love how he's just going to navigate this, and they can't wait to learn how he's navigating a tough stretch, injuries, multiple quarterbacks, a tough loss over the weekend, but appreciate him and the time to make for our show. We got award winners as well, man. So before we get to all that, how you living today, brother?
Good. We're back on the mostly healthy train here at this point. So let's just roll through the end of the regular season here. We got 2 more weekends of regular season play, and then we got the championship, then we got the Heisman, then the playoffs start. So let's roll. Let's do this.
Okay. I love that for you. I'm like, I can't wait for a weekend. And we're like, no, we're going to go to New York. We're going to go to the champ games. We are not slowing down here at Y Option. So Jim Thornby, thank you for driving this. I don't know what we are, for a Ferrari, if we're a boat, if we're every day, it might change.
That's but the right there.
Totally.
Ready, set. Use French fries to go. Yeah, oil from French fries. Turn yesterday's leftovers into today's fuel. More power, lower emissions. 76 renewable diesel fuels all the ways you go, go, go.
All right, before we get to our guest in Trent Bray, they are facing, of course, Washington State this week. This is a big week. For Wazoo, you referenced it off the top. Playoff hopes no longer, but big-time bowl still there. Jim, can you just lay out, what is the bowl situation here for Washington State as we look at this game? And we know that for the Beavs, they've got to win out if they do want to get to the postseason as well.
Yeah, well, look at it. You still have the same Pac-12 bowl contracts, and oddly enough, for this year and next year, it's still including all the old Pac-12 teams, no matter where they're in the other conferences. Now you look at it, so that those top 3 bowls are the Alamo, the Holiday, and the Las Vegas Bowl, and right now, it's an almost certainty. I can't imagine a scenario where Oregon is not going to the playoff. So take them out of the mix. Then it's basically Colorado, Arizona State, Washington State that are kind of clearly ahead of all the other former Pac-12 teams in that mix. And there's a decent chance that either Colorado or Arizona State is one of the teams going to the playoffs too. So we'll see how that materializes. But in that realm, you're looking at either those 3 teams, Colorado, ASU, and Washington State, filling those 3 spots, or filling 2 of those spots because one of those Big 12 teams is going to the postseason. So Washington State has still a lot, even though now the college football playoff is no longer a realistic option. A quality bowl game against what would likely be a very quality team. Now, who knows, now that we're in this transfer portal era and everything else, of which team will actually, we'll know what uniforms will show up to those bowl games, but you never know what actual teams show up to the bowl games because of transfers and everything else. But you have a chance for a very cool matchup come this offseason.
I love that. All right, so let's get to the very cool matchup. Oregon State, Washington State. We're going to break down this game all week long. Right now, though, we're talking to the head coach of Oregon State in his first year and navigating some challenging times, but definitely knows the only way through it is to work your way through it. So on behalf of our founding partner, 76, we bring you a conversation with the head coach of the Oregon State Beavs, Trent Bray. I love it. We don't get return guests, repeat guests very often, Coach. We have you coming back, Trent Bray, head coach at Oregon State. Coach, how you navigating? Here we are sitting in November. You got a big game against the Cougs coming up this weekend, coming off a tough one.
Yeah, navigating is just, you're disappointed because of the outcomes the last couple of weeks. But the reality is you got another game to play that you got to go win. And so staying focused on the process and locking in the Washington State and what we got to do to beat Washington State.
I think so often, like, fans can think like, oh, coming off a tough loss, like, you got to stay focused. It can be hard. But I think for players, it's like, no, they want the next practice, the next game. I'm curious for you, this team extremely well. What have you noticed about the attention to detail for this team every single week coming back to work, preparing for the games?
The thing that's been great with this group and why it gives me great encouragement moving forward is you wouldn't know what our record is watching practice. They show up and they work, and then they're intentional about their work. There's no one hanging their head or feeling sorry for themselves. They go out there and work. And so that has made it much more enjoyable and easier to navigate through this time because of the way they show up.
I sometimes chuckle when I think about this. Players, can navigate challenging times and move through them. Like coaches, sometimes like we hang on to it, right? I coach my kids' flag team. Coach, we only won one game this year. And like every Sunday night, I'm laying with my wife and I'm like replaying the game in my head, right? Like I can't get over it. And they're 9-year-olds. How are you and how are you coaching the coaches to navigate this challenging stretch?
Yeah, it's just that we got to be able to move on as coaches because it is hard because you put a week of work in and game planning, and then if it doesn't turn out the way you want, it's frustrating. But we got to look at everything. Okay, what are we asking them to do? Is it too much? Are they good at the things we're asking them to do? And just keep always diving into how can we help these guys be successful?
I know you haven't coached as long as your father has yet, but you've been around the game since you were born. Have you ever been around a season where the injury bug hits a team the way that it has hit yours this season?
Not to this extent, but I've been a part of some teams where it's been unfortunate. But yeah, there's been a lot this year.
Yeah, and to that point, because I think it's not an excuse, but it is a reality, especially when your depth isn't maybe as deep as it's been in recent years, or like you may have hoped in year one. How have you seen young players rise up, or players that in August were like, okay, they'll have a role on special teams, but now they're counted on to play 50, 60 snaps in the game?
Yeah, I think it's in the long run, it's going to be a good thing. Like, even though it's tough right now, there's a lot of freshmen and just young guys that are getting their first meaningful minutes in college football for us this year. Even guys that transferred in here were freshmen when they left the school that they were at. So that in the long run is going to help us. There's no question. And we just got to continue to get them ready to play at a high level every week.
Is there somebody in a story that has stood out to you among that young group?
I don't know if there's been, like one exact guy because there's been so many. I look at guys like Isaiah Chisholm, who's getting his first starts this year as a redshirt freshman. Saladin Allah on offense at running back, who's really starting to come along and make some good plays for us. That's going to be a really good player in the future.
Yeah, you can definitely see them flash to a large degree. I think on one hand, like, yes, it's your first year as a head coach, but you've run a side of the team for a few years in advance of that as the defensive coordinator. What has been either the easiest or most enjoyable part of this transition, and what in year one has been the biggest challenge of sitting in that big corner office for you?
Yeah, the most enjoyable is the kind of interaction and ability to, have spread, whatever my beliefs and whatever through a whole team, right? The relationships I have with the whole team now, instead of just one side of the ball, and being able to help those guys on both sides of the ball. That's been the most enjoyable. The hardest part's been letting go of the X's and O's. Because that's been just what I've done for so long, and I enjoy that part of it so much. That's been the toughest part for me.
So how do you do it? Like if we were into the headsets, like is it just you just have to have that discipline and allow it to happen, or do you just kind of pick and choose? Because I say that like I can remember I'm aging myself here, but I remember being at SC under Coach Carroll, and I learned a lot from Steve Sarkisian, and we'd be on the headsets all the time, and Pete to this day would say, yeah, I probably did too much, because he'd be, well, run this and try this and do that. And we'd be like, dude, like, come on. So I'm curious for you, like how you've navigated that discipline to not get into the thing that you've always had success being around.
Yeah, I think it's picking your moments, and making sure what you say is constructive and not out of frustration. That's been lessons I've learned throughout the year. But also, in general, I just try to be the head coach that I'd want as a coordinator. And so if I think of it that way, you don't want someone meddling and in your ear all the time, because that's just going to take away from anything rather than add to it. So that's really been the focus for me.
That's cool. What kind of head coach would you have wanted?
Like I've been fortunate enough to be able to coach for those guys. Coach Erickson, Mike Riley, Jonathan. When I got into being a coordinator, he gave me great suggestions, but let me do what he hired me to do. And so that was great for me, and that's who I want to be as a head coach as well.
Stealing that's awesome. We were together, it seems like many moons ago in Las Vegas, and the title of like the preseason media event was Welcome to the Fight. It's been one for you guys. It is for your counterpart this weekend. What has it been like being, two teams in a league that is also expanding in real time throughout this season?
It's been interesting. You try to stay locked in and focused on the task at hand, but there is a lot of stuff going on. I will say it's getting better as far as there's a conference, teams are joining, there's a future, there's a path forward, which has been great, not only for the program and the guys in the program now, but in recruiting. The recruits know that there's a plan moving forward has helped a lot.
How is that? And I know you'll hit the road here in a matter of weeks and aggressively get after it here with the early signing day coming up. But I'm curious now with the new look Pac-12, at least from my vantage point, I think it's going to be the strongest group of 5 conference, if you want to coin it that. Mm-hmm. But you get basically an automatic berth with whoever wins it into the now expanded playoff. How has that, if it has, opened up more living rooms per se, or more phone calls? And I'm curious what the receiving end of that has been like from recruits.
Yeah, it's been good. I think they see that as well. As there's a better path to get to that playoff, right, in the Pac-12 than probably it has been in the past. And it's also becoming the only conference in the country where you can play regionally, where your family, if you're a California or West Coast kid, can actually watch you play live every Saturday and have that ability. So I think that makes it unique now, because every other conference you're traveling across the country every other weekend. Yeah,
that's an incredible point, Coach. I'll leave it at that. This senior group that you guys have, this is the time they're going to run out. They're going to go out of that tunnel. Research Stadium is going to be rocking for the game this weekend. What has this group meant for you in your first year? I'd imagine these seniors are the first ones to give you a hug when you walked into that team room when you were named the head coach.
Yeah, it's been. It was so much appreciation for them, and they've been through a lot. They were here when we started to rebuild this the first time, and got it to the point where we were winning 10 games, 8 games last year, and then they're back in kind of a rebuild mode. So they've been through a lot and have handled a lot of adversity, which I think in the long run makes you a better person. But they've been great to work with. They're all about this place, and it's made my job easier.
Wow. Yeah, I think back to senior day like it was yesterday. I can still remember like getting a hug from my parents. I'm sure you could dig up that old photo from you back in the day as well. Be remiss if we didn't ask about the quarterback position. It's been one that's been challenging, hit with many injuries for you guys this season. Where do you anticipate? I know it's earlier in the week on game week, but where do you guys net out in advance of the game against the Cougs?
Yeah, we're hoping to have Ben Gilbranson back and him being ready to go. But we also got between Giovanni and Jabari, got to get them ready as well. And it'll kind of be where are we at? We'll know Tuesday. So we'll know where we're going to be at as far as health. And then we got to make a plan and move on. And again, goes back to whoever that quarterback is, what did they do well? And we got to tailor the game plan to what they do well.
Ben Gilbranson, Well, what a journey he has been on. I mean, whoever is penning that book, or if he's looking for a co-author, have him call us here. Happy to help in that regard. Postseason is clearly a topic. Bowl eligibility. You referenced your team and how they're able to focus and be lasered in on the next day, the next opportunity, the next practice period at hand. How do you navigate the reality of what you need to do in the last 2 weeks to get to the postseason with your roster?
I think it's just that in order to get to 6, we got to win this one. And so you can't worry about anything else but getting this one. And then you move on from that after it's done.
I know Ted Robinson, our good friend, is going to be calling the game this weekend. If we had a mic on you and Jake Dickert in the pregame, what would you think that conversation is going to be like in the most unique of years, I'd imagine, hopefully ever in your coaching lives?
I'm not sure. That'd be an interesting conversation, I'm sure, because we both probably have strong opinions about what's going on and what's happened, and have some good insight. I'd be interested to just hear from his point of view everything that's gone on, because I know it's been crazy for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk to Ted and Molinari and the company, see if we can get some mics on you in advance of the game, man. I can't wait to watch it. As always, know how busy you are, but you've been so gracious with us, and I've loved our relationship over the course of time, man. Wishing you absolute the best this weekend. Enjoy. I know you will. Senior day and the final game for players that mean so much to you and that program. Thanks for the time today, Coach.
I appreciate it.
It's the Afterglow. That was Trent Bray, Yogi Roth here, Jim Thornby there. Jim, what were your takeaways from the first-year head coach of Oregon State?
I mean, obviously he's dealing with a lot of adversity this year. I mean, he downplayed it as any coach would with the injuries. But I mean, if you really look at what this team has gone through, especially on the defensive line and the defensive backfield, and starting from spring ball all the way through fall camp. And then, the season started off pretty good. Obviously they lost the Oregon game, but then the injuries really started to tack on. And just to even still, be in the hunt for a bowl game right now, I think is impressive. Obviously there's in no way, shape or form is this the way they thought this was going to go or planned for this to go. But to his point, a lot of young guys are going to get a lot of experience this year that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So as they look to rebuild this program, that's going to come in huge.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, let's not forget the fact of the situation that they are in. And let's not forget that Trent Bray held together as best as he could. Yes, some players did depart for other institutions, but the players that are there, at least from every player or coach or people I talk to, like they love being there and being around that program. It's going to be and always has been a developmental program. So now when you look at next year, it's going to be another unique season. But the year after that, to me, is what these young players are building for. When these young freshmen that are getting some playing time this coming Saturday and past Saturdays are third-year players and juniors in that program in year one of the new look Pac-12, they're going to be in prime position to make a case to, of course, win that league and have a shot to go to the postseason, and that postseason not just be bowl eligibility, but be the playoff. And I think that's the long lens you want. For the Oregon State fans, you have the right guy leading the program. Nobody cares more about a program than those that have played there, those that have put on the uniform. I'm telling you, it is just a different thing, the pride that he and the staff has. So, yeah, frustrating, crushed by injuries. And they don't have the competitive depth that some other teams have in major college football. They were hit hard by the portal. So now, okay, they couldn't survive the injury element. Now, how do they finish and make this a 2-game season? I think they got to clearly have a big one on Saturday. And then just keep pitching the opportunity. You can come play here and you can come win here and you can make a huge difference. Oregon State is a power team. It's a power school. They have the support. They have the resources. They have the NIL. They have all the things I believe that are necessary to be a powerhouse on the West Coast and be able to play a Boise every year and a Washington State every year and a San Diego State in the future every year to go to the playoff. I mean, that's a real thing. So I loved what he said about that element in recruiting and just love the time for a head coach to take out their time during the week to spend time with us is awesome. I cannot wait to watch it on Saturday. Our crew will be on it. It'll be Ryan. It'll be Ted. It'll be Nigel. And now Sounds like the coaches will be mic'd up in pregame. Let's go. Let's go. All right. There it is. We're out of here. I'm going to go.
You've just now committed them both. Way to go.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Just go with it. All right. Lots of love. I know you could be watching this on Pac-12 Insider as well if you've got a smart TV. So that is very cool. Check us out on YouTube. And, of course, thanks for all the love, giving you college football through the lens of the West Coast right here at yoption.com. Peace.